I was with my friend several years ago, Billy Murdoch, and he was telling me about his Christmas experience 2004. He had a great Christmas with his family, his wife and his children. Had a great time together eating their candy, their food and their gifts, opening their presents. He said the next morning, Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, he said he was sitting watching the news, eating his breakfast, enjoying life, when something terrible happened. He said that great tsunami which killed over 250,000 people around the rim of the Indian Ocean, he said it just floored him, just devastated, just upset his whole holiday time. He said, what can I do? And he started to search for ways. What can I do for these people? How can I help these people? What can I do? And he went and got the national flower, the Indian flower, the national flower, and he made it into a little badge. And he went around Northern Ireland selling them for a pound a piece. Actually, this is one here right now. As a matter of fact, I can show you. A pound a piece. And he took all the money from this little flower. Here's what it says. Boxing Day, day after Christmas. Enjoying our gifts, crushing boxes and putting them into the bin. And we noticed on the television this great tsunami. This little badge, he says, the 26th of December, if you wear it, and say a little prayer for the people, for the children, for the devastation here, every penny will go to help the people who have been devastated. But all over the world at that particular time, reporters, people, preachers, people all over the place, they were asking the question, where is God? One reporter wrote, if God is good, he's not God. If he's God, he's not good. He said, you can't have it both ways after the Indian Ocean catastrophe. You know, evil and suffering are not evidence against God. They are not. And I know we have a problem. I know there are difficult questions. And I know there are things that go on in our lives, in our world, in our churches, in our homes, that are devastating. And it makes us question. And I think it's okay to have doubts. As long as your doubts don't outnumber your faith. I love the story of Joseph, and I know you're familiar with it. I know it's old hat to you. But I often talk about Joseph. He probably was an arrogant young man. I had a dream, you're going to bow down to me. I know one thing, he was hated by his brothers. He was hated in their anger. They imprisoned him in a pit. And then they sold him into a life of slavery and misery in Egypt. I just wonder how many times Joseph prayed to God, God, get me out of this. God, save me. Help me to overcome this, God. Take this horrible thing away. Lord, get me out of this. He prayed to God for relief, for escape. But no help came forth. Into slavery he went. And he experienced years of bondage and misery. But all the while, Joseph's character was being strengthened by his trials. And eventually he ends up as the Prime Minister of Egypt, who saved thousands of lives, even his own family, from starvation during the time of famine. If God had not allowed Joseph's suffering, the years of suffering, he wouldn't have been the powerful agent for social justice, for spiritual healing. And there are many, many people who can identify with this text. Many have admitted that what they really needed for success, it came through life's most difficult experiences. Roger was a young man who had everything going for him, but he was shot in the face during a drug. He went to get himself some drugs and he was shot in the face. He said, all my life I've been selfish. I've been a mean person. He said, I cared for no one but myself. Every bad relationship was his fault, or was not his fault. It was the fault of others. But the loss of an eye, he lost his eye. You know, it humbled him, and he became a different person. The loss of sight devastated him, but it profoundly humbled him. His physical eyes were closed, and the eyes of his heart were opened. Open my eyes, Lord, that I might see what's important, what's precious, what's valuable. He saw how he had been treating people, even his own family members, and he changed. He said, now I have real friends. And he said, my life is worthwhile. You see, evil, pain, suffering may be evidence for God rather than against God. C.S. Lewis, I think it was Mere Christianity, classic little book that I was encouraged to buy years and years and years ago. But C.S. Lewis describes how he rejected the idea of God because of the cruelty in life. And in the end, he realized that suffering, pain, tribulation provided a better argument for God's existence than one against it. Can I read you just a little tiny piece from Mere Christianity, page 31? My arguments against God was that the universe seemed so cruel and so unjust. But how had I come to this idea, just and unjust? When I was comparing this universe with what I called unjust, of course I could have given up on the idea of justice by saying it was nothing but a private idea of my own. But I couldn't do that. My argument against God collapsed. For the argument depended on me saying that the world was really unjust, not simply that it did not happen to please my private fantasies, but he says consequently atheism turns out to be just too simple. So you see, evil, pain and suffering may be evidence for God rather than against God. And C.S. Lewis recognized that modern objection to God, it's based on a sense of fair play and justice. But where do we get the idea from? Fair play, justice. Where do we get the idea just, unjust from? People who believe ought not to suffer, be excluded, hunger, all the rest of it, depression. Wrong, false. It's a false assumption. Every single trial in life, listen, can either make us stronger or weaker, make us better or better. I thank God for the things that come into my life. I thank God for the trials, the tribulations. Do you know why? I'm honestly beginning to see, Lord, the Lord has opened my eyes that I can see what's important. May you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and may God bless you.